أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي وبعد. Approaching the topic of financial independence and understanding the different ways that we can acquire money, specifically from a fiscal perspective. We're not speaking about wealth in general, we're speaking specifically in terms of finance, money. Approaching it as a mentality, approaching it spiritually, approaching it practically, understanding what is it? Is it a good thing to want to acquire wealth, or is it a bad thing? What different types of ways do we have to acquire wealth financially? What's the bar? How high should we go, and what's the lowest should we accept? So these are all going to be topics that we're going to be talking about, inshallah, along with breaking mental barriers when it comes to achieving certain levels of financial success. And leading this is going to be Brother Nazir, inshallah, who's a business coach, and he also advises on finance, and he's an accountant by profession. And I'll hand it over to you, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. The first thing is this concept of financial independence. What does it mean? Because there's a lot of online talk about getting financial freedom, escaping the 9-to-5, all these kind of movements that are online now, discussing about this holy grail of financial freedom. So I want to ask, actually, what is our perception of financial freedom? What do you see as an achievement which will tick that box for you as financial freedom? Just general question to the brothers.
Being able to attend Salah in the masjid.
That would be, for you, the epitome of financial freedom.
Not the epitome, but something along the way, yeah.
That would be like a byproduct of financial freedom. Being able to, I guess... Exactly. So it's broken down into a few elements, right? Time freedom and kind of location freedom. Being able to do what you want when you want. This is what enables you to... And as for a Muslim, Salah in the masjid is a big thing, right? Going Hajj, going Umrah, being able to do what you want when you want. However, there are other, I guess, on a macro level, byproducts of being financially free. On a micro level, on an individual level, I get to do what I want when I want. If I want to go swimming in the beach tomorrow, I can be there. But on a macro level now, if we're talking about politics and the sphere of influences, if you have financial freedom, in essence, you're kind of free, you're free to speak your mind, yeah? Because what we see now is obviously a media which is pushing a lot of narrative, and Muslims, we're scared because we're in jobs. We can't speak about the topics of, like, for example, Gaza, because we're going to get cancelled. We're going to lose our income. But if you're financially free, you kind of lose your muffle, right? You can kind of start expressing yourself and opinions and dictate the narrative. So that's on a macro level. So that's another byproduct of that financial freedom. Sorry, Shoaib, you had your...
No.
But yeah. So on a macro level, we can start to control the narrative. And that is one of the purposes, for example, of these retreats. Interesting thing about the retreat, and I hope he doesn't mind me speaking about this, is from a business perspective, a loss-making venture. Yeah? But it has a purpose, right? It's a loss-making venture because there is a Muslim man, for example, Brother Essa, behind it, who can afford to put money into something to bring brothers together without the necessity for that financial goal of charging £500, £600 a ticket, right? Because he's able to do that, he's only been able to do that through financial freedom, right? In a sense, he's got income coming in, sufficient income, and he's deployed it in a way that benefits others. We've all benefited from this. This is the second retreat I've come to. I've benefited twice from this. And sometimes we focus a lot on the lectures online, the narrative online is halal income, earn halal income, and earn halal income, but also spending halal, yeah? There's there's two ends of it, right? There's how you earn it and how you spend it. So what is the best way to spend money? Islamically would be, logically, the more people you can impact in a more beneficial way, right? He could easily take the money from this and go buy a nice watch. That only serves him, right? Very, we're talking about egoistic stuff yesterday. It serves himself. Now, this has a greater purpose. How many people are willing to do that? I've been invited to many retreats. They're all, like rightly so, profit-making ventures. But when you're trying to create a narrative and inspire people, and you're willing to kind of dig into your own pocket, that is a big strength. And no one can control that. No one can control what we do in this retreat, because he's not being controlled by anyone. He's able to put something forward now, a program where he knows every 6 months he can put this on and he can make it the best retreat he can for the brothers, and he can bring speakers. He can, we can go to the beach. Inshallah, in December, we'll be going to a nice cabin. But this is all because of that wealth that you generate initially. You cannot give if you're in need. Yeah, this is another thing. You can't give if you're still in need. So that financial empowerment for the Muslims is very important. I don't know if you want to say a few words on that.
Yeah, of course, Jazakallah khair. I mean, I'd shy away from using myself as an example there.
Sorry to bring you.
No, it's all right. But practically speaking, the hand that's above is more powerful than the hand that's receiving. And as a minority group living in the UK, you'd be very, very surprised as of how you can actually do a lot of dawah when it comes like through business or via business. And we hear in the past where Islam reached places like Indonesia and Malaysia through business, and how it reached Yemen as well through business. So I've experienced this firsthand when it comes to the power that you have within the market. And I've listed a few examples I can share with you, brothers, over there that you guys can actually take away from. And inshallah can inspire you to not let go of your values when it comes to negotiating, especially with parties who are non-Muslim. So in essence, we were approached by developers. One of the things we do is property construction and development. And we were approached by one of the major developers in Manchester. They're called Salboy, these guys. They're one of the major developers that develop in Manchester. They've made so much money that, in essence, they want to do a lot of JVs and partnerships with companies that want to do construction and development. And they're ready to own the project outright and fund the whole construction outright. And they just want you to find the project for them and deliver it in the necessary time frame, and they'll fund everything. So after we spoke with them on the phone, in essence, we told them, you're trying to behave like a bank, or you're just calling it as a JV partner, because they want like a 1% every single month and stuff like this. I told them, in essence, this is what's called in the finance market as a bridging loan, or you just called it a JV venture. So why don't you just call a spade a spade? And then I told them, I'm not too sure if this is Sharia compliant, and I need my board to actually check it. When they checked out our portfolio, they said that that they're very keen on working with us. Their manager traveled all the way from Manchester to us, and he told me, why don't we go meet up? Let's go grab some drinks. So I told them, we're Muslims. We don't drink. But I'd be honored to invite you out for a coffee or for a dinner if you'd like to go somewhere else. You elevate yourself, but also be respectful at the same time, and you push back. And his response was even more surprising to me. He told me, I've been trying to be sober for the last 8 months, but drinking is so embedded into our culture that it's a cultural thing for us to say, let's go for a drink. He says, I've been trying to avoid pubs, and I'm really, really glad that you actually made that recommendation, and thank you so much for it. And then when he came in and he sat down with our Sharia board, we told them how we want the contract to be worded. And we told them that we're not going to be paying that. And we'd happily give over more of our profit to them than them taking that 1% every single month, for example. And they were happy to accept those terms because of our power in the market and because of the track record that we have. And it just shows you that you can negotiate even with people like banks that it seems like their terms and conditions are non-negotiable. They can be negotiated. At the end of the day, it's a game of relationships. Who is it that you're talking to? What type of rapport did you build with these individuals and such? There are other examples where we start to negotiate with councils, government organizations, when it comes to like certain government contracts that they do. One of the other companies that we have is the housing. We deal with government housing. So there's like large clusters of society that need housing solutions. And you have certain contracts with the government and with the council for you to take these clusters and you find solutions for them. People that are coming back, are coming out of prison, people that need rehabilitation, vulnerable children, vulnerable women, refugees, these people that need, people with disabilities that can't go into full-time care and stuff like that. And then you'd be in such a position in the market where the government comes up to you and they say, no, we'd want to work with you. You own X amount of real estate, and you guys have a certain footprint in the market. And then they start to ask you in terms of the business and in terms of talking and then you start to get invited to certain events with the local council and you start to build up. And then people in the bigger corporations and bigger organizations, they start to know your name. And automatically you've got your foot into the door and you can start to have more important conversations. We were invited to the House of Lords and we sat down with lords on tables and we'd tell them straightforward, because we knew our position over there. If they did something that's not right, we say, no, we did not vote for you, or we did not do this, or we did not do that. Why? Because of your stance on X, Y, and Z. So it gives you a certain level of leverage that's very, very important. In essence, it's izzah. It's strength, it's this element of power. That's very difficult for you to acquire in non-financial ways. Yeah, you can bring a lot to the table in a non-financial manner. However, in this time, where the ummah is very, very weak, in a brittle state, there is a bit of a duty and a responsibility on our shoulders to acquire these funds to empower the ummah, not for us to drive around in Ferraris and Lamborghinis and to get bigger houses and stuff, which there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that if it's done for the right reasons. If someone wants to drive around with a Porsche or a Ferrari, or to say like, look, this is the type of wealth that a Muslim can bring to the table, and he's still humble about it, there's nothing wrong with that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes to see the results of the wealth on the servants. This is a hadith. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, where you're getting loans from banks, you can't even afford that car in the first place, and then you're trying to show off and you're trying to do this and you're trying to do that, that's completely different. It's two different things. It's two different things. And sometimes you need these to even close bigger deals and build confidence and show people that you're still in the game, if you know what I mean. But now you're doing it for political reasons and for financial, and to increase your wealth rather than for these other reasons. So these are just small examples that we're giving to show how, as a minority, non-empowered group in a Western country, these are practical examples where we see it actually gives us sometimes leverage and it gives us a voice. And it's important for every single one of us to understand every single angle, because this is what I have access to. Maybe one or two other angles too. But you're going to have angles that you have access to that I don't have access to. There's going to be an angle that you see over there that needs funding, or an element over there that needs empowerment that I'm oblivious to. And that puts a sense of responsibility on every single one of us, that the moment they acquire that, what am I going to do with it? Setting that as a waqf for X, Y, and Z. And that's that part from my side.
I think I just had a thought as well when you mentioned the government contracts and stuff like that. That is, for me, like when I think of business ideas and I see like, we've got every 6 months or a year, we've got the chancellor coming out with his red book and his budget. One of the things that I do as trying to find new businesses and new types of income, I always look at government policy. For example, this housing crisis and stuff you was mentioning. Governments are printing money. Never forget that. Yeah, they've got this printer that they print with. So if you can put yourself in the line between the solution that they're looking for and the government, you've kind of got an infinite amount of income that can come your way. For example, my accountancy firm, no one wants to submit their accounts. They're only doing it because the government has legislated it, right? None of you here pay tax voluntarily, right? It comes out of your pay slip, or you get a letter in the post saying, "Hi, mate, you need to submit your tax return." So I'm in an area where that's essentially the customers are created by the government. So it's an infinite amount of customers that can come my way, right? I know for all of his businesses that he's mentioned, he needs to submit tax returns. Yeah. So if you position yourself in that kind of field, where, for example, my other business is in an education sector. Education sector is financed by Student Finance. Again, a government body, right? They're printing money. I've put myself in a position where I am recruiting students who are getting student finance and attending uni, and I take a slice out of that. So these are things that I guess, I was talking about business ideas. A lot of people struggle with business ideas. sometimes looking at where you can put yourself between you, the government, and the consumer. Because these guys are printing recklessly. Every time they print money, the pound in your pocket devalues. Yeah, and they're continuously doing this. This is part of the riba-based system, right? They can just wake up tomorrow and print £1 billion. And that pound in your pocket suddenly is worth 10% less. Hence why we've got all this inflation. What happens when the inflation? They're just printing money. Inflation happens because there's one item in the marketplace. He's got £1. The government printed £10 and gave me £1. He gave you £1 and you £1. We're still fighting for this same product. What happens to this product? The price goes up. This is all manufactured. This is a consequence of years and years of printing their way out of things. But if you can position yourself where you're getting a slice of that print, because it's going to happen regardless, whether we disagree or agree with it, they're going to be printing this money. And this is one of the things I guess you're going to mention is about passive income. What is passive income? Does it even exist? Does truly passive income exist? For me, in my opinion, I don't believe it does. There's always an active element that you need to have in running a business. It's very hard to automate or outsource every single part of the business. So the first topic, I guess, was the passive income. My opinion on it is that there's no such thing. And everything at the beginning, at least, requires huge initial effort, which then you can use AI, automate, and outsource. What do you think about this whole notion of passive income? Because it's something that's thrown around quite regularly.
That's true. And I think we were speaking with one of the brothers earlier on. I'm not sure if he's here. He said your son, uncle. He said a lot of this passive income culture stems from laziness. People don't want to work. And like they see working as something that's dishonorable. When in fact you should take pride in it. There's nothing wrong with doing a 9 to 5. What's wrong with that? There's the brother over there. There's nothing wrong with doing a 9 to 5. And in fact, you should take honor in the 9 to 5. But the question over here is there more potential in you? Rather than working within, there's a system that is basically here, okay, alhamdulillah, there's people, they work within the system, they earn X amount of money. Fair enough. But now what you're doing in essence is you're trading your time for money. You're saying, I'm going to do X task, and I'm going to do it in X time, and in return, you're going to give me X amount of money. That's a way to make money. One of the many ways. Now you can trade a product for money. You can trade a service for money, or you can trade time for money. These are all, in essence, commodities that can be traded, and in return, you will get money.
You don't want to be in a position in the long term where you're constantly trading your time for money, unless you're making £200-300 an hour, which it kind of, it will justify it, and that's quite a good wage. But as long as you're constantly exchanging your time for money, you will never become wealthy. No one became wealthy from exchanging their time for money. So that's one thing as well, that this whole idea, like the brother you mentioned above, the 9 to 5. The 9 to 5 has been stigmatized heavily, especially online, in these people that are trying to sell you a dream, right? The 9 to 5 has a good purpose, actually. There's 2 reasons why 9 to 5 is good. If you're earning or if you're learning. If you're earning 200-300K, no one can come and tell you that your job's rubbish. You're making good money. You're providing for your family. You're going on your holidays. You can have another wife if you want. You can probably, have a nice car, have a nice house. No one can come and knock that, right? So this whole blanket idea that this 9 to 5 is kind of, it's very stigmatized.
And it's attacked.
It's quite toxic, right, for young men who are impressionable, because also the other thing is, if you're earning and if you're learning, one of the fastest ways to gain skills is through a job, right? I worked in an accountancy firm for 4 years. Everything I learned was from that job. That fast-tracked all my learning. I was in a huge organization that had the infrastructure, the management, the resources, all set out. I was just a pawn in the piece, which was fine in that moment. Everything has its time. Some people are trying to become 10-figure entrepreneurs by the time they're 20. It doesn't work like that. That age is the best age to take risks, learn, get into a job, get into a high-skilled job, stack skills, and then think about entrepreneurship. If it comes to you earlier, alhamdulillah, Allah bless you. But don't think inherently that this job is useless, that going to uni is a waste of time. If you're going to go to uni to be a doctor, lawyer, accountant, that's a good reason to go uni. You need to go for those reasons. If you're going to do something that eventually you're never going to work in, or you're never going to use skills, of course that's a waste of time. You just spent 30K for no reason. But to say that uni is a waste of time, to say that, oh, you're working 9 to 5, it's a complete waste of time. This is very toxic for young men, especially in the social media age.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I'm very happy that you thought about this example. It puts unnecessary pressure and it sells false dreams. That's basically what it does.
Yeah, go on.
Please, yeah.
So I do believe passive income exists. I generate it. I
Alhamdulillah.
work 9 to 5. I went down the uni route, so I studied in Manchester. I studied law. I don't work in law, work in tech. I'm a career at IBM. So alhamdulillah, I was quite fortunate in that sense, where my parents were quite strict, so I had a new kind of set up, so I forced that. I grew up in a hood. I grew up in Leiden, in East London, with all my mates and on the same hall.
Gutter.
Exactly. It's possible, it's not for everyone. But what I would say is, if you're going to go to uni, think about a degree that's going to be useful for society. There's a need for it. Don't just go to uni for the sake of it studying arts. Yeah, you're not going to do the next Picasso. It doesn't work that way. Be realistic with what skills they're going to teach you. If you're doing a degree that's going to teach you negotiation skills, public speaking, communication, amazing. Yeah, that will be useful for the society and people. You can use that. If you're going to go to uni and it's not going to teach you anything useful that's going to be useful down the line, yet you can go work in accounting, great. But that will teach you skills, you can go work in IBM, great, that will teach you skills. If you can't get into those routes, maybe you're not book smart, start with the basics, start with negotiation skills. It's key. Any business you go into, you need to be able to negotiate. Be an effective communicator. Communication skills are key for any high-paying job. They say in the criteria, are you able to communicate effectively? And there are sales techniques, there's methods, there's loads of different things that you can do in one time. Now, that does require time. That time will be valuable down the line. Right? It's the time that you put in now that will show in 2-3 years.
Yeah, and that fits directly into what Brother Nazir was saying. So obviously, the point being put forward is that passive income, the way that people perceive it, does not exist. However, which is what's being sold to the people is that, oh, you're going to put X amount of time, you're going to earn X amount of money, and then you're going to sit on the beach somewhere, and you're not going to get involved in nothing, and automatically you're going to become a billionaire. So that's what we're talking about. That dream, that's the scam. But in terms of passive income, where you trade a service for money, or you have a business that's generating income without you necessarily have to be involved in it, obviously that does exist. And we can give examples of that. For example, buying a property. Yeah, and that's something that you can do alongside your 9 to 5 job. And then the moment that's earning you enough income where you don't have to work, and that's where you go and you work on scaling it and things like that. But that's more the practical element that inshallah we'll approach, or we'll come to later on when we're speaking about the examples of these passive incomes. But now what we wanted to focus on, which is the similar product, the similar idea actually that you touched upon, which is grounding yourself before approaching being someone who is successful in the industry. And what Brother Nazir has also said regarding getting yourself ready and prepared before, this is what we call grounding, to be grounded. And I'll give you a few examples of grounding. The first thing that, for example, you start off, you decide you don't want to go to university. Let's start off over there, all right? Now you have the stigma. The stigma is he didn't finish his education. Maybe you're smarter than everyone in your year that exists, or you decided you want to go to university. The stigma attached to you is that he never finished his education. That's called the reality. That's his culture. That exists. You're happy to live with that, fair enough. You decide to become a mechanic, or you decide to become a plumber. You're 16 years old, there's courses out there, you paid a £500 course, you became a plumber, you became a mechanic. Now you're going early. You're doing the work that the actual plumber doesn't want to do because you're his apprentice. You're doing all of that nitty-gritty stuff, but then you've gained experience because you were thrown into the deep end. Now you understand exactly how that boiler works. You understand the piping. You understand the regulations. You understand the trade secrets because they're making you do all that hard work. So now you understand what works and what doesn't work. Same thing with, like, for example, being a mechanic. And then your rate increases because you've got experience. So now you can go and tell your boss, listen, I've got a bit of experience. Are you able to increase my salary? Because there's other opportunities over there that might pay me a little bit better. Because now I've got 2 years experience, 3 years experience. You'll either increase your salary or you go and you find a place that will pay you a bit more. Now you become a senior mechanic or a senior boiler technician. And then after that, maybe you have a team working under you. You earn more money, you're getting commission from sales. And then after that, you've developed a customer base. There's clients, they like your work. And then you come and you say, you know what, I'm actually ready to start my business. Now you've turned this skill set from being an employee into being an employer. And then you've turned that skill set into something that could potentially be passive income. Because then you can hire a manager and he can manage all of them for you. Had you not started from that grounding, which is of earning that skill set and going through that toughness at the beginning, you wouldn't have been able to train your team or gain respect from those clients in the first place. And there's this element of it fun. And it's a saying, or it's metaphorical and also literal, where they say dirty hands means clean money. All right. And it's very nice for you to earn from your hands. So this organic journey is how the majority of people they earn their wealth. Like even when you look at the stories of Jeff Bezos, or you look at the story of what's his name, Mark Zuckerberg, or you look at the founder of Rajhi Bank in Saudi Arabia. He used to be he used to get paid like £1 an hour to lift heavy things in the market for people that were shopping. Rajhi, he increases by like $1 billion every 2-3 days. This guy his conglomerate is insane. It's the largest bank in Saudi Arabia. Their wealth is insane, this one. And even with these other like tech companies that suddenly catapult and stuff like that, they all have stories where they started to program in a garage or something like this. And you can apply that same concept to any skill set. Any skill set. Even if you're a doctor, eventually you can see a gap in the market for a certain product or a certain tech that can, solve a problem with the NHS and then sell them a product. Bismillah. That was close.
I think it leads on to like the second part of our bit, which was overcoming mental barriers. The issue with what the brother was saying here and what you were saying is that it's quite a long process. What you've just described has been like 10 steps to get to this ultimate dream. But what we experience now is people are really programmed to have immediate gratification, right? That immediate dopamine hit is always available at any given moment on our device in our hand. So to tell someone that you're going to have to do this for 6 years, they don't want to hear that, right? There's a balance between the immediate gratification and deferred gratification. Yeah. The reason why we sacrifice this life, we defer our enjoyment in this world for a hereafter, eternal hereafter. So this is embedded even in our religion, the idea of deferred gratification. So even with, the brother said about the uni doing these courses, people want success now. People don't want to wait 5-6 years of what you said of working your way up from apprentice, being the manager, senior manager. They want CEO from day one, right? So how do you overcome that mental barrier now?
So the first thing is, the first thing I want to say is being a CEO is not a lofty thing. A CEO is the highest paid employee. Or you're going to be the shareholder. That's what you're going to be. Or you're going to be the founder. All right. CEO is just another employee, right? And I used to have this argument with a lot of people from India. They used to say, all the biggest CEOs are Indian. And I used to tell them, that shows that you guys are the best employees. But that's just some banter that I banter with. Obviously, they're geniuses in their field and their industry, mashallah, but I'm not to take any credit away from them. But with opportunities presenting themselves now in the world, like in crypto, all right, where people, they became overnight millionaires. And with the volatility of the stock market and stuff like this, they've created opportunity that never existed before. And these are what we call anomalies in the market. We should not treat them as a status quo. What does this mean? We don't say that the way for you to become wealthy, or the organic way, that the natural way, is for you to invest in a few coins and then wake up in the morning and you're going to be a millionaire. Is there a chance that's going to happen? There's a chance it can happen. Is it high? It's extremely low. And then people, they go and they sell up assets and they start putting money into this, and then it goes up and down and stuff like that. This is where there's no tarbiyah. The tarbiyah of wealth is more important than acquiring wealth. Because the moment you acquire wealth and you don't have that grounding and that tarbiyah of having it, you end up being another idiot with a bit of money. Well, I'll be very honest with you. This is what the Western people call nouveau riche. I don't know if you've come across this term or not. And it's not a nice term. It's called new wealth. When you look at someone, I'm not attacking anyone over here wearing brands, right? But I'm just saying, like, technically, that's someone, they're LV'd from top to bottom, yeah. They've got this brand, they've got their watch, and they've got this, and they've got that. And everything associated with them is a brand. And like, they're trying to show everyone, look, I'm wealthy. That's typical nouveau riche. That's new wealth, all right? Where someone sits down and they walk in with shades on, and they're like walking like they own the place, and they sit down, yeah, and they're like, oh, you do this, you do that. That's nouveau riche. That's not generational wealth behavior. That's someone with no tarbiyah of wealth. You see? And people with real wealth would smell that person out like that, like a shark smells blood, and they will disrespect them. And they will only be powerful with people below them. They will not be powerful with equals. They will definitely not be respected with those with more power and wealth over them. So let's bring this back to what we're talking about, which is the tarbiyah associated with wealth. And I'll give you some practical examples over here. So I am unaware of people who became wealthy overnight through crypto that are nice people to chill with. They're generally speaking, I would say maybe 95% are idiots. They're not pleasant individuals. And I'll take this a step further. I'll say people with generational wealth, people who I really have a high respect for, it's very rare to see their children to have a tarbiyah. They're generally spoiled. And then when you do see examples of that, hats off to the father and hats off to the children. Because the amount of dedication it takes for the father to embed into the child that you are not born just because you're born with a golden spoon in your mouth means you can behave in XY manner. And for the child to have to accept that and to go through that element of tarbiyah, hats off to both of them. Extremely, extremely rare. The majority of them are snobs. And I'll give you an example of that. Once my brother came back home, this was, I don't know what, 15 years ago or so. And some of our family friends, they came from Saudi. And I told him, what's wrong? Like, why are you a bit? He was wearing Armani glasses that I don't know he's had for 3 or 4 years. Stuff you don't even think about. All right. He goes, one of Dad's friends, his son was there, and he says that because my glasses are old, he doesn't want me to chill with him. I was like, so what? And he goes, yeah. And I got him, tell me more about this snob. So this guy's father is probably worth 4 or 5 billion. All right. Between his peers, he's one of the poor guys. Now, when his dad came, his dad went into a Toyota. He went into a hotel in central London. And he's a humble guy. That's his dad. Because he's made that. He understands the value of it. He's not. His son, he says, no, I want a Mercedes to come pick me up. And it needs to have panoramic sunroof. If it doesn't have panorama, I'm not going to get in it. And I want a private number. I want one of those number with digits, X, Y, like whatever, lots of 6s or 7s or 9s. And in essence, the grand scheme of things, this kid is a no. But just because it's his dad, he has this sense of entitlement. Now, what's the possibility that he's going to do something stupid that potentially might make his family lose all of their wealth? It's quite a high probability if he's behaving the way he's behaving. Because he's not going to inherit his dad's connections and his dad's network, which is more important than his dad's money. And that reputation, because he's an idiot. You see, it's now because he lacks in that tarbiyah. As opposed to other billionaires and other very wealthy individuals where their sons, they show respect and they show respect to the other people, they would happily extend that network when the father, passes, Allah takes his aman. And now he's responsible for the family wealth and the family stuff. Yeah, the people would, with pleasure, they'll deal with it. So going through that grounding of the natural way of working your way up, learning how to communicate, learning how to trade, learning how to establish a network, taking a bit more risk, which you have that privilege of when you're younger and you have less responsibility on your shoulders. You should when I tell you, I would even go to the degree of saying abuse that. I would say exploit it to the maximum, because what are you going to lose? You're going to make a trade and lose £100 or £200. You're going to learn that, okay, I shouldn't have done that trade, I should have done this trade. But you've learned a valuable lesson from that. As opposed to in the future where potentially you might find yourself in a position, I need to put food on the table. You can't afford to take risk. That £100, £200 will go a long way with trying to put food on the family table. So
yeah, all the risks I took when I was at my mum's.
Yes.
Every dice that I rolled that had a big loss attached to it was all when I was in the safety net of my family's home. Shoaib.
I was going to say, Sam, I remember one thing you said last retreat, which stuck with me, that flame of adventure, right? You have to keep that spark alive, and that can be alive, especially in your 20s. One thing that I want to share is the stuff around filmmaking and content creation and social media. I remember when I stayed at home in my parents' house, I saved a lot of money. The money that I saved on rent, when in my 20s, that money I used to buy these same camera that I have today, right? Each camera cost around about £3,500, just the camera itself. But I had to basically live in my parents' house, save that money, and build on skills that I know are going to be in demand in the future. So if young people take that advice, where they basically can, in their 20s, just start experimenting, just try different things. You need kind of, there's not much at stake, especially if you're unmarried. There's a beautiful time to do that. So thank you for that. That was very good.
The thing is, the responsibility hits you like a ton of bricks. Yeah, when you need to move out and you've got children, the capacity to take those risks reduces heavily. Especially for us, like we live in the UK, right? The amount of customers, potential clients, customers, and the marketplace is massive. Yeah, especially in a growing Muslim space, there's halal industries. It's huge now. Everything seems to have a halal word attached to it now. It's massive, especially for me. It's a huge opportunity when I think about what 1 in 5 people or 1 in 6 people in London are Muslim. About 15% of people in London are Muslim. So can you imagine the potential customer base? And for me, when I'm trying to plan and plot, I want my customers to be in a Western nation, but I want them to be served somewhere else. For example, because this is a type of location arbitrage. Yeah, my customers are paying me in GBP. I'm servicing them in rupees. Yeah, that's a big gulf now. That profit margin is about 90%. Especially in a service-based B2B, B2C industry, we're not utilizing this kind of competitive advantage that we have. We're all here. The currency is extremely strong and the talent is not in this country. All the talent that I use is editors in Australia, yeah, back-end staff in Egypt. I have assistants in Philippines, people in Pakistan and India. It's such an easy access to cheap labor. We don't have to be in these places. We're serving customers here. We're winning the work in here and servicing them overseas. It's literally, honestly, one of the biggest opportunities that we're kind of not utilizing more of. Even when I advise my clients and they're always trying to hire 10 people from England, you hire 5 people from a different, overseas, they'll do the same job more efficiently, more diligently, without getting sick, without, not in a rude way, having to pay maternity and all the other costs that are incurred with hiring from here. So this is what things people are not really capitalizing on, this location arbitrage. I don't know if you use this in your businesses or in the things that you do.
That's a very important point, because what people don't understand is how much privilege we have being raised in the West.
Huge.
Just the fact you have a British passport and you speak the English language and you deal with the British pound, that gives you, we hear about the 5% that are the wealthiest in the world. What we don't notice is that we are from them.
Yeah. SubhanAllah.
Just the fact, You know, like in the world, I think maybe the average is maybe, I think it was $300.
Couple, yeah, dollars.
$300 is what a family lives off in the majority of the rest of the world. Imagine that. And over here, maybe we're hitting, I don't know, the standard family from £2,500 all the way up to 5,000. That's average. And that's what family needs of students. They pay basic rent. Yeah, bro. Son.
But just going back to the point of where, as you were saying about that, it doesn't come straight away. And I just had a really good analogy for this, that if you want to become good at anything in life, think of a blacksmith, that he has steel, he has iron, he puts it in a blast furnace, I don't know how many degrees, he has to heat the hell out of it. He then has to hammer it and hammer it and hammer it and mold it eventually into a sword. And it's exactly the same if you want to achieve anything in life. You have the goal, you're going to have to go probably, you're going to have to go through hell, you're going to have problems, you're going to have hardships. But it's hard, but just do it anyway. Get comfortable doing that nitty gritty, hard, awful things. You're basically molded, you're getting molded into a sword. Like if you want to get to any level, you're going to have to go through serious hardship. And for example, in jiu-jitsu, right? To get good at jiu-jitsu, you have to be humiliated, you have to be tapped out, like you have to get absolutely battered to be able to be good. And it's the same as a business, you're gonna have to sacrifice hours, time, money. You have to sacrifice everything. It's hard, but just get comfortable doing that hard thing. It's gonna be hard anyway, but just be comfortable doing that hard thing. And this analogy applies to anything, Islam. If you want to become a student of knowledge, it's going to be hard. You're going to have to sacrifice your life, business, relationships, family. Just get comfortable doing hard things.
I think the other thing is we don't spend enough time sharpening the axe, which is kind of what you're alluding to, right? If we go to, if we're spending time cutting a tree, we might want to spend a bit extra sharpening the axe so that whole process becomes a bit easier. And that process of sharpening the axe is different for different people in different industries. As long as we're able to see that process through and trust it, trust that I'm sharpening this axe because in a few years' time, when I need to cut that tree, it's going to be easier. That's a big mental barrier. And that's one of the topics, I guess, one of the things that we want to highlight as well.
Work smart, not hard.
There you go.
Of course, but then there is one other thing which fits in exactly.
Yeah, no, sorry, I didn't see your hand up. So yeah, go on.
Yeah, so you spoke about recovery of money, delayed gratification,
Yeah.
stuff. Let's say you're a young person. What practical steps, let's say you're 18, 19, can you take in order to develop when you're consuming content that might be drop shipping, trading, crypto, all of this stuff is right at the forefront that maybe we might not have had when we were younger, or it wasn't as, especially now there's a cost of living crisis.
Yeah,
right?
huge.
So there's an additional burden in which you could feel like your 9 to 5 doesn't suffice. And people can capitalize on that pressure in order to push get rich quick schemes and stuff like that. What advice would you give?
I think that voice that you're saying that is online is very powerful and it's getting bigger. Yeah, and it's almost a race to the bottom with these kind of things, right? These claims that get more outlandish to lure more people in. Yeah, so the best thing would be to cut, if you're able to cut out that noise. But the thing is, as a young teenager, adolescent, your ideas are still shaping. So this is why these kind of retreats are really important, right? Because we're trying to be an alternative voice. I know I haven't given you the practical steps because it's really difficult, right? Because I would love to, for example, create alternative content around it so they can consume good stuff, the Islamic ethos, the Islamic way of doing business, the delayed gratification. But that other side is getting really, really powerful and stronger. And I'm also struggling on a way to battle and combat this.
It's mostly lies. It's mostly lies. And I'll tell you this straight away. Whoever's trying to tell you, drop shipping and whatnot, and then he's trying to charge you for that course or whatever it is, he's probably making more money off that course than he's making off drop shipping.
This is
Wallah,
it, isn't it?
Wallahi, I'll tell you. Wallahi, I'll tell you straight. Yeah.
That is. But what do we do though? What do we do to combat this?
I have a few practical steps.
This side is going to have the questions.
I have a few practical steps, but we'll come to that later. Uncle, want to say something, and then we'll move to the program.
And there's a brother at the back.
And there's a
My
brother.
question is related to these courses. yet to ever buy a course, be interested in a course. Maybe I'm an anomaly, but I've certainly achieved what they've purport without buying the course or even attempting to even investigate or talk to even people like that.
Alhamdulillah. And mashallah, tabarakallah, for the people that don't know Uncle, if you don't mind me saying, Uncle is a success story when it comes to understanding the markets and gaining wealth. So he knows exactly what he's talking about when it comes to this for a very, very long period of time. So in essence, what's wrong with you trying to do dropshipping without paying for a course for it? Just try it. So you learn, but we want that delayed gratification. You see, we want that immediate gratification. So imagine, a friend that does Amazon, or he does he buys products from China and he brings them in. He's not doing no courses about it. If you actually sit down with him and you take him out for a coffee, it's okay to be vulnerable. We've got this stigma, this ego going around these days, is that we're shy to ask. So wallahi, the more vulnerable you are, the more humble you are, the more you will learn, and the more doors that will open up for you. So for you to sit down with someone, let's say you see someone in an industry where it appeals to you, ask them. Say, from your experience, what would you advise me? For me to start at that point. Rather than you going paying for a course and this guy, I don't know, he's bro, trust me when I tell you that.
I don't think courses are inherently evil, or bad things. Because how else do people learn things, right? I went to uni onto a course. So the idea that a course is toxic, but I guess it's a bit distasteful, perhaps, the way it's being pushed onto people. This is it. Not information itself. You're allowed to provide information for a fee. That's not a problem. Coaching, information, it's part of a service. But the wrapper that it's wrapped around is what potentially is leaving a taste in people's mouths, a sour taste. I don't know if
because it's a general pitch. That's a chart. Look how much money I made. If you want to get off and be a wealthy, whatever it is, sign up to this course. Give me £250.
250?
A
bit more than that.
I don't know what. And then
high ticket.
And then in a week, I will teach you how to do X, Y, and Z and stuff like that. Okay, let's smell the coffee a little bit when it comes to that.
I just wanted to add on what both of you guys said. I just think the narrative needs to change completely. I think even the fact that this topic is about passive income, I don't think it should have been worded as passive income, because for the younger generation, I'm assuming some of you guys are way older, you're more educated, but for the younger generation, when they hear passive, they only know one thing, right? So I just think across the board, the narrative needs to change, because everything that I see that's propagated to the younger generation, where they are the most impressionable, is just quick. I can do this in 6 months, you can do this in 12 months, start this. Because as Naz said, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with courses. Everything you get on a course, realistically, you can get on the internet, but what are you getting is time. Time is more valuable than money, right? So I think just the narrative needs to change. Whenever you're talking and conducting things with the younger generation, it has to be more about building sustainable skills that have longevity. Rather than talking about dropshipping. The thing is, as you guys mentioned, all of these skills genuinely work.
They do work.
Every single business works, otherwise they wouldn't exist. But I think in terms of the environment and the society we live in, what is propagated is just quick. And if you ask even the kids that are 15, 16, they are genuinely confused. They don't know if they want to go to university, college. They don't know if they want to buy so-and-so's course and do a 6-week trading intense boot camp so they can make 10K a month. Realistically, they are the ones that are going to lose, because you guys have walked through it. You guys were raised outside of social media, so you guys are kind of tapped out. So I think the message, when you guys are propagating, it has to be in terms of building long-term skills that, as you said, has grounding. Otherwise, I think they are losing out, because I'm 25. I've kind of lived outside of the social media era, not as much as you guys, but they are the ones that are losing nowadays. And every time I speak to someone, I was speaking to a kid recently, 6 weeks ago, and he was doing that apprenticeship, that is accounting apprenticeship, and he genuinely wanted to drop out so he can do a course on the internet. One of the guys was doing some sort of dropshipping or something, and he thought in his logic was, I can make more money that way, and what's the point of me spending my time in an apprenticeship and having to work that long? And I think genuinely, just the point I'm trying to make is the narrative just needs to change.
That's true.
And that's why
I think it's a good example of how we are constantly at information wars. We're constantly at, whether it's international issues, local issues within Muslim spaces. We're constantly at information wars, and a lot of the times the other side has a head start. Yeah. So how do we now build that? Now we all know this is a problem. We need to start kind of being the other voice, empowering the other voice, amplifying the other voice, right? So that's what I guess that's what's one part of the objectives of the retreat is, right? To highlight these topics that are kind of sensitive as well to talk about, that people don't really want to touch on, and hard to do on a one-to-one basis. In this group now, we all discussed quite a few topics that are kind of, especially this courses stuff is very out there. People feel it in their heart, but perhaps might not say it to each other. But now we all know that, okay, cool. If we think that this is kind of toxic or bad for young people, we need to go away now and think, okay, how can we be an alternative voice? How do I take it upon myself? I'm not waiting for him. I need to think about how can I take it upon myself to kind of drown out the other side and amplify the good. I'm not telling you to go and create videos about it, but even if you're sharing, liking, and engaging with the other side, it's good.
Just before I move to that, brother, I'm going to answer the question that you said head on. There's an 18-year-old that comes up to me and tells me, look, where do I start my grounding process? I'll tell him, number one, understand, easy money is a bad thing, it's not a good thing. So, for example, research the amount of people that won the lottery, all right, for example, and see their lives and what happened to them. The data is scary. How many of them ended up committing suicide? How many of them got taken to prison? How many of them, suffer from mental health issues and depression and stuff like that? Because eventually they end up spending all of that money, and then they had such a high that they can't match anymore. Like he just wakes up in the morning, decides to buy a helicopter. No one knows why, but because he can. He doesn't have that tarbiyah, he doesn't have that grounding. So that correlation that you just shock the system. And I have one of my friends, he has a PhD in physics. He has a very nice analogy that I like to use sometimes. He said that when you put boiling water on ice, the ice doesn't melt, it cracks. So when you put something in an environment it's not used to, and you expose it to an environment way outside its norm, it doesn't melt, it cracks. So this idea of suddenly making a lot of money is not good, it's bad. So let's first of all understand this program. The second thing I'll tell him is you need mentorship. That's what you need. See who made it that you respect. He's got deen. He never lost his relationships on the way. He never lost his deen on the way. The moment he gained his wealth, he started to invest back with his family, his community, his deen to empower that. See, that's a good example of a guy. Sit down with him and tell him, brother, give me some advice. Where did you make some mistakes? Where would you want me to start? Where maybe he has a few businesses until you learn this X, Y, and Z. A very good book for you to read is Rich Dad Poor Dad. He speaks about this very, very well. It's a really good book. That just kind of puts that inception of the idea of gaining experience and then monetizing on it later on and delayed gratification. It's excellent for that type of stuff. The moment you see this guy and he's on flying all over the place and he's flashing his money and stuff like that, most likely that's nouveau riche. Most likely. And the moment you look at what he's done, you tell him, can you replicate that? Most likely he'll tell you, no, I got it. Most likely. So that's what can he teach you? Can he teach you how to be lucky? He can't. So what you need is mentorship. That's what you need. So look at successful examples and get them to be your teachers in that. That's way better for you. And then grow yourself organically and start your grounding through that route. That's a very practical tip that I would give to someone from that side. And be vulnerable, ask questions, be hungry for questions.
The mentorship is great, right? But practically, let's say a young person, they don't know where to start. Where would I find a mentor? Why would someone mentor me? How many Muslim men out there have even mentorship programs aimed at these people? Yeah, there's a supply and demand issue, right? If the kid wants to be mentored, where's the other side? Where's the Muslim men that are successful? Exactly. Where's the side that is going to give the information without necessarily putting a high ticket or big paywall? Because the age group that we're talking about, they can't necessarily have access to this kind of.
So we can be practical about it. So, for example, if someone approaches me and they tell me, where do I start? I'll tell them, this is a number, this is an uncle, this is the company, this is their details, and I'll make that connection. And you go and you have a coffee with them, and they'll tell you what they did and what's in front of them and stuff like that. I'll be very practical about it. Alhamdulillah, we've done that in many, many ways. So that's the way I would deal with that. But you're right.
It's not scalable, right? What you're
scalable.
saying
It's
is
not
like,
this is
okay,
individual.
this is
It's not
very
scalable, yeah.
individual, and we're
And-
fighting an information
yeah.
war, which is larger.
And that puts more responsibility
Yes,
on the brothers at the top
yes,
for them to invest a bit more into that
this is
as
it.
well, creating schemes and apprenticeships and all that type of stuff outside of the like within the Islamic umbrella and within the people that they know how to do that grounding and that tarbiyah.
And there was some questions.
There was someone that sent one of
some
something at the back here. Absolutely.
So, on the topic of grounding and, trying to combat, like, for example, I can only speak from experience, and for me, alhamdulillah, like, since a young age, we've always had money, we've always been blessed in that way. But one thing, like, I can remember from my life, from being young, is the phrase, like, get your hands dirty, and no job is below you. So like I can remember like being like 7 or 8 years old, going to tenants' houses, trying to move washing machines out of the way. I can remember, building a roof with my dad. I can remember working on construction sites. And then and that feeling of getting your hands dirty and doing stuff, actual physical labor, and not just maybe in the industry that you're in, because, I'm very academic, I'm focused on science, I love science, but because I've been blessed with a father who has been a good mentor, it's all starting to add up now. I never really realized what was happening in the last 20 years, but now I realized, okay, there was days like, we might have had a dinner in Mayfair with clients, but the next day we'd be waking up 6 a.m. going to a boot sale looking at 50p Adidas things, and then I'd be sticking them on eBay selling them. So that hustle mentality and that no jobs below you, we still have to deal with all sorts of issues, sewage issues, clearing drains, toilets, and alhamdulillah, because the way we were raised and our family and around us, there's no job that's below us, And all I can remember is my dad being the person who helped others.
Amazing.
I'm always helping. So
And
that's very important.
This is what we referred to earlier as the tarbiyah of wealth, being more important than wealth itself. Because now what uncle has done is he's adopted that wealth mentality. He's taught his children that, and now their children, because they've gone through that, they can teach their children. So that's more sustainable further down the line. The chances of an idiot being there that's going to ruin it all for the family has reduced, in essence, rather than raising a spoiled brat that's useless over there, which starts to become burdensome on the family. Just because every time he wanted something, daddy just went and paid for it. But no, that tarbiyah element is better for the ummah, it's better for the family's wealth and actually preserving it, and it's better for the growth mentality for the child, because later on, khalas, it's not just daddy is the cash machine and whenever I want something I make a phone call. No, he understands how to make that wealth in case anything happens in the future, God forbid.
I want to draw something Ahmed just said, because it was quite important. I'm 52, so I am outside that social media. There were 4 channels on TV. It was black and white. My dad didn't allow color TV. I think I was 15 years old when my dad allowed for what would be construed a piano today, but it was a TV because it was that big and heavy. But I want to make a connection between that and the principles in, I think it was the year 2000, when a brother gave me a book, which I read even right to today. It was Duties of Brotherhood. It's a translation of Ihya Ulumuddin. And there's 9 principles in it. 24 years on, I can't get past principle 1. What it expects of me. And if you read it, principle 1 is split into 3 elements. And the first one is love for your brother, what you love for yourself. Second principle is love more for your brother than what you love for yourself. And I will keep you, let's just say I'll keep it, I won't tell you what the third one is of the first principle, so that you go and buy the book, or you go and PDF it. You can Google it right now and you'll see it. So my tarbiyah has come from Islamic principles
Alhamdulillah.
rather than
Of course.
the internet, or there was no network, no talking to people. It was a hard school of knocks, and you just found your way from making mistakes.
And that's why it's
Everything is
important.
from the creation of Allah.
And that's why it's very important to allow or give opportunity for the youngest to make those mistakes. Because now it's very harsh, or he failed, or he did this mistake, or as long as it's a controlled mistake, it's okay. Because that's teaching, that's part of that grounding process, is to make the mistake and to learn from it afterwards. We need to take a break.
Just one saying that comes to mind when we're talking about this, making sure the youngers, our children, perhaps learn these grounded, these issues of being grounded. Is when we want to be successful, we're going to become strong men. There's a saying that goes: strong men create easy times. Easy times create strong men create easy times, and easy times create weak men, and then weak men again create hard times. We want to break that cycle, right? We want to teach when we're creating these easy times for our kids and our families. We want to also teach them the lessons that we learned without really necessarily having the same struggle that we did. So if we can kind of break that cycle and make sure that those lessons are passed on to our children, the youngsters, then it doesn't need to go back into that hardship.
Definitely, and that's why that grounding is very important, and the tarbiyah of wealth is more important than wealth itself. We have to take a break because the food is ready and it's warm and it's a barbecue. If it will get hard afterwards, so let's just go start eating, inshallah, and then
Got the panel later.
yeah, we'll continue.
Okay.